Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals, May 13th, remote public meeting. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For the record, this is Zoom meeting ID 876-0338-6329. I recognize in attendance myself, Joe Parisi, James Gelati, Adria Pratt, Peter Canavo, Michael Nyman, and Catherine Schlichty of the Board of Appeals, and I hereby declare a quorum to be present. The method we go through is we call a hearing. We let the applicant present what they're doing, and on each thing, there'll be opportunity for people to speak in favor and opposed to the application. So you raise your hand on your Zoom, or if you're on a cell phone, you dial *9 and that'll raise your hand and we'll be able to bring you into the discussion. So we'll begin with, we have some old business. We've had to carry over the petition of Kimberly Mackey and John Rogers appealing the decision of the building commissioner concerning a zoning violation involving a deck located at 6 Mount Vernon Street. Have we heard, are they here? Kimberly Mackey? You are, raise your hand. I think this one's kind of resolved itself. So there was a stop work order. There was a permit to demolish, and it looks like they've done what they were asked to do. And the appealer has not been at the last 2 meetings, so I think we will declare that resolved without a decision. And I'll have to put something in writing. Our next old business is the petition of Suzanne and Frank Kisney appealing of the building permit 20-478 at 105 Wingashiek Road. You recall this, we began to hear this, and there was still more information coming in, so we had continued it out. Attorney Marshall Handley was representing the applicant. And Marshall, I see, is here. Could we bring him in, please?
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'll be recusing myself on this application.
Thank you. Attorney Handley.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
I've seen the revised plans.
Can you just state your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Marshall Handley. I'm representing Frank and Suzanne Kinsey of 111R Wingashiek Road, the abutters to this property. With me is Frank Kinsey. So we've, I've seen the revised plans. I haven't heard from the building inspector as to his opinion of them. I note that it reflects an elevated roadway. That is, it's my understanding that kind of structure is not addressed by the state building code, but it's a matter for the International Highway Code. And it needs to be an engineered structure. We don't have the benefit of the engineering plans, but our objection obviously was that it was within the setback, and these new plans appear to have addressed that. I don't think that the plans that have been presented are sufficient to build it. I'd like to note for the record that what's depicted here is a 4-car garage with piggyback parking within it. The ramp structure that is shown here appears to be insufficient to allow any kind of turnaround. So what we're talking about, if you want to say, for example, get the inner right-hand car out, you're going to have to back the outer right-hand car all the way down the ramp, then back the inner right-hand car all the way down the ramp. My only concern is that as patently ridiculous as this design appears to be, that the applicant is going to come back and say that we've got a hardship relating to the shape of the structure and affecting this structure. And for that reason, we need a variance to now expand into the side yard setback. Because I think it's pretty obvious that this solution is not one. It's not one that anybody can seriously think is the final solution to that parking problem, because it's we're talking about now the ramp here isn't dimensioned, but if you look at the elevations that are shown on it in the 12:1 slope of the ramp, this ramp is going to be 100 feet long, and it appears to be one car width wide at the narrow point. So you've got a long backing up. You're backing two cars a long way to get one car out of that garage. And I think it's clearly unworkable, but if it's built this way, it looks to be consistent with the setback objection which we had, and if that's the way they want to build it, as long as they're willing to live with it, I don't see it as objectionable. From a zoning perspective. From a building perspective, there may be issues. I mean, before a permit is issued to construct it, or if one is, I'd like to be notified of the issuance of the permit. These plans are not engineered plans. They're not stamped by a structural engineer. They don't meet the highway construction minimum requirements. There's nothing shown as to foundation or support. So they're clearly insufficient to actually build and approve the thing, but it does appear to be within the setback and compliant with the setback.
Can I answer?
Okay, let me go to Mr. Cephalo from the building department. Are you any up to speed on this, Greg?
Yes, I am.
Okay, if you can enlighten us a little more.
Well, I had spoken with Bill. Bill had reviewed the drawings that were submitted. And in reviewing them, told me that as they exist on the new plan, they're compliant.
The zoning.
Yes, for zoning purposes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So Attorney Hanley, I guess. I'm thinking at this point, now that it's revised to be compliant, you may want to withdraw your appeal. You still would have the ability to appeal any attempt for them to apply for a variance later on.
Well, I would just like to have the record reflect that this design is the choice of the applicant. It's not constructed. There is no current hardship on it. It's easily available, and it appears to be a much better design to approach this garage from the traffic circle, and then you can have 4 cars in it side by side that could actually make it out. But that this is a self-imposed hardship willingly undertaken by the applicant, and should not be considered as the basis for a claim of hardship, when it turns out to be as preposterous as it appears.
Yeah, I agree, Henny. Do you have a preference how you want to appeal? Continue? You appealed the decision to issue a building permit, which
I
Greg,
did.
is that
I did.
issued now still?
I don't believe that these plans are sufficient. I mean, I don't think the plans are sufficient to build this ramp.
Right.
I think if the building permit is to build that ramp, I think the appeal still lies. If the building permit does not extend to constructing that ramp, then, then that's fine. I reserve the right to come back when there are plans that are sufficient to support the construction of that ramp, but the current plans don't do it. And I think that the cover letter that was submitted acknowledges just that they don't have the geotechnical information that allows them to even contemplate the design of this thing. As long as the building permit is clarified to reflect that it is not allowing the construction of that ramp, I don't have a problem with it.
Greg? Is that where we stand now? Because I know Bill agreed that he was going to need much more elaborate drawings to include the ramp.
Yes, I think Bill's concern was bringing this thing into zoning compliance, and the building portion or plans required to build this would be a next step.
So there is no building permit for this ramp.
Well, there was a building permit issued and it showed the ramp, but no one was clear about whether it included it, and that's why they appealed. One, the ramp was way in the setbacks in the original, when the permit was issued. So even though it's pulled back in compliance, I don't know how they could reissue that permit without better drawing. But I don't know that that's our game.
So should we put a vote on the record since there's been an issued building permit saying how people feel about it, whether, it's not to include the ramp or it's to be withdrawn and till the building inspector is satisfied with engineered plans. And my understanding is they've resubmitted the plan, so it's no longer in the setback, right?
Right.
Right.
That's correct. But the plans themselves are acknowledged by Red Barn Architecture in their letter of March 23rd to be insufficient to build the ramp. I don't think there's any dispute that the plans are insufficient to build the ramp. I mean, they're not even dimensioned that I can see, and there's no structural information there. I mean, there's no stamp, which you need a structural engineer, a civil engineering stamp on that in order to build an elevated roadway, and that isn't there. So I guess what I would like from this board is either to overturn the issuance of the building permit, or to clarify that the building permit, while it is valid, does not go so far as to approve the construction of the ramp.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. How do we say that? Before us is the appeal of the issuance of the building permit. So I would think we could not overturn the decision with the caveat that it doesn't include the ramp until.
Or we could uphold the appeal insofar as it applies to the ramp.
Yep.
Which I think we should put something on the record.
Yep.
I'll make a motion if you like, Mr.
So we should take some testimony, I guess, first.
Oh, right.
So we'll take some public testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the appeal, meaning opposed to the issuance of the building permit, please raise your hand. We have several. Now everybody's making up their mind. So first we'll go with Anne Marie Lindquist. And remind everyone your name and address for the record before you begin.
Yes, my name is Anne Marie Lindquist from 101A Wingersheek Road. I'm an abutter to the abutter of this property. First, I would like to call the attention of the committee to the fact that this Zoom meeting is very hard to access. There are many, many neighbors who are concerned about this property. And right now, this hearing is not easily accessible on the City of Gloucester website. There's no direct link on the calendar. There is also no live link on this committee's page. There's only a link where you have to retype. So I'm very concerned that there are many neighbors who may be concerned about this, who are not able to easily access this hearing.
The only thing I would say, there's over 40 people logged into the hearing right now. And this is our 37th Zoom meeting. And we've never had anybody complain about not being able to access it. But
Right, well, I'm
free to go
calling to
ahead.
your attention because some of the other committees are much more easily accessible. And I know that previously over 100 members of our community on Wingershik Beach have attended hearings of other committees. So I'm calling, that's my first point. My second point is also that if this building permit is approved, it will be a very sorry day for the City of Gloucester, which will be allowing for construction of a structure that is 5 or 6 times larger than the neighbors and 2 or 3 times larger than the immediate neighbors. And where it's fairly clear that the developers intend to market the property for hotel-like purposes, as they do with other properties worldwide. And I'm very saddened and appalled and thank you for your attention to this.
You may not be able to on mine. Mine's already got a name.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Tom Mantle.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tom Mantle. I reside at 1037 Washington Street in Gloucester, but I'm speaking in my capacity as the trustee for family residence at 79 Wingershik Road. Irrespective of the issue with the building permit, I would like to remind the board of their sentiments that were expressed back in March about that the character of the neighborhood is the determining issue in the zoning board of appeals decisions. Attorney Fine stated on the issue of the property at 66 standby.
Eastern Point Boulevard.
66 Eastern Point Road, that to wit, that this is a seaside village and the purpose of zoning is to provide conformity and consistency and to protect the neighborhood character, which the members of the board agreed with in oral discussions, but those statements are not reflected in the record of the minutes. Irrespective of what happens with the building permit, I would like to state that the proposed structure at 9,500 square feet is 43% greater in living square foot than the largest existing house in the neighborhood. And I would define the neighborhood as the Upper Beach Association, which extends from 1 Wingershik Road all the way up to the castles and beyond. This property, especially with respect to the proposed square foot, will be and would be the largest property in the neighborhood. That's the first issue. The second issue is this is a residential area. And if the use of the property changes at some point in the future to make it more of a rental, occasional use property, Airbnb, VRBO, whatever, that's also inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood as a primary use of the property. And at that point, if the committee decides to approve this project in the first instance, what recourse do any of the neighbors have to come back to the ZBA and ask for a change?
Well, just to clarify everything for everyone, There is no application before this board tonight for anything. This home was completely compliant, except for the ramp, which is why the issuance of the building permit was appealed to us. That's the only thing before us tonight. This property apparently doesn't require any special permits or variances, as far as I can tell, because they issued a building permit. They missed the fact that the ramp went into the setback, which would have pushed, which is what generated the appeal. I don't think there is a recourse to appeal a building permit for a compliant property. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg.
Well, there's always a right to appeal, but there is a time limit for that appeal. And it's spelled out clearly in the 780 CMR, Code of Massachusetts regulation.
Is there a part of the Gloucester ordinance that restricts the use of short-term rentals on a long-term basis
No.
in residential zoning?
Airbnb, there's no regulation.
Okay.
Michael? Did you have something?
Not that I know of, no. Yeah, my encouragement is, just as you were saying, that we should not be unsympathetic, because if I live down there, I might feel just like Mr. Mantle does. But I think we need to work at keeping what's in front of us and what we can decide and not decide, as the Board of Appeals.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? This is supposed to be in favor now.
I'm in favor of the appeal.
Right, okay. Mark Bobrowski? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, I have. Did you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, Mark Bobrowski, I'm counsel for the applicant. My office is in Concord, Massachusetts. This is an appeal of the building permit that was issued because the ramp was in the side yard. The ramp's been removed from the side yard. The size of the building is totally irrelevant. It's allowed as of right under the zoning ordinance.
So you're not speaking in favor of the appeal?
I'm speaking in favor of the application.
Well, it's not your
against
time
the
yet.
appeal.
then.
Okay, I'll
We're
come back.
taking testimony in favor of the application, which is the appeal of the
I
building. permit.
misconstrued you. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Kinsey. Bring him in.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay. I'm Frank Kinsey. I'm the abutter, was represented earlier by Mr. Hanley, who's my attorney.
address, please.
I live at 105 R Wingersheek Drive.
Thank you.
Did I get that right? 111, sorry, 111 R Wingersheek. Couple of points. One, with respect to the ramp design itself, I know we've covered this, but the specifications of the ramp design it was originally supposed to be a 12-to-1 slope design. I don't think that ramp is a 12-to-1 slope design. It's 9-foot elevation. It would be 100 feet long. I think they've drawn the ramp shorter than it needs to be to maintain that 12-to-1 slope. So certainly when they do come back with plans for the ramp, one would expect it to be consistent with, internally consistent. If it's a 12-to-1 slope and there are slope requirements for such a ramp, then it should be the proper length, which is over 100 feet long. Secondly, I have had discussions through their attorney with the applicant with respect to the garage. As Mr. Hanley pointed out, the current design is a piggyback design entered from right outside my master bedroom with the garage door opening. And I suggested that, and it requires piggyback because the building's not wide enough to have 4 cars in that direction. However, it then ends up being wide enough, long enough that if you were to turn the cars at a 90-degree angle and enter from the front of the building, from the traffic circle, there would be no need for piggybacking the cars. And it would also remove the obnoxious door opening and closings from outside my bedroom and the need for that ramp right outside my bedroom as well. So I had suggested that the architect has not taken that suggestion, but I certainly think that would be a practical solution that would remove the impediment that this will provide, not only to my sleep and enjoyment, ability to enjoy my place without having a garage door opening at all kinds of hours in order to back cars down a ramp, in order to send the cars back up the ramp, in order to back them down again, another second one, and send another one back up again, and do that in all kinds of weather, but also a very unsightly highway off ramp right outside my bedroom. The second point I wanted to make, and I think this gets to what one of the comments that someone else made, is that I'm very concerned, and I know a number of the neighbors are concerned, that what we're really looking here is a Trojan horse for the construction of a mini hotel on Wingershik Beach, which there's certainly precedent for. The applicant owns another property in Turks and Caicos that is approximately the same size, that it operates exactly like that on VRBO or Airbnb, and rents it out when they're not in residence. And certainly this is a single family neighborhood. So unrelated individuals in the single family neighborhood renting portions of this building, I would think would be against the Gloucester zoning ordinance, unless you are allowing multiple unrelated families to live in single family residential neighborhoods in Gloucester. We would certainly hope that there is an avenue for the neighbors to appeal if it turns out that what this is really doing is constructing a hotel where they want to have a bunch of unrelated people living and enjoying the hotel, which would completely change the character of our neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. So again, I'll remind you, what was appealed to this board was the issuance of nature of your appeal was, this is an appeal of so much of the permit as would allow the construction of an elevated motor vehicle ramp as depicted. So the only thing we're considering is the motor vehicle ramp based on the fact that it was in the setbacks. And if they hadn't changed the plan, I think we would be agreeing that, yeah, the permit for the elevated ramp should not be issued. I think we might even be heading that way at this point, so that the permit for the home, but again, anything to do with that or how it's going to be used or anything is not before us, unfortunately.
Yeah, there was one other aspect of the appeal, which was the fill issue. On the original plans, they drew what looked like 6 feet of fill underneath the house. And I was very concerned about that because of the impact it might have on my house and my property of adding that fill. The letter that they've sent said that they aren't intending to bring in any additional fill onto the property. I did just want to clarify that would that also allow them to scrape up the existing sand from wherever, the beach, the neighboring, the rest of their lot, and pile it on top of their house and create a 6-foot hill on their house, which would then drain onto my property? Or would that not allow that kind of regrading of the dune area in order to elevate the elevation underneath their house?
Anything they do on that site wouldn't be our decision, it would be the Conservation Commission. So I believe they've been before them, although I'd have no idea.
Can't imagine there's not a strict order of conditions. They're in a dune.
Yeah, gotta be. You folks would know better than us because we're only dealing with our piece.
Yeah. Well, as you know, there's a conflict here in that the head of the Conservation Commission is the architect for the proponent.
Well, we're not going there. I'm sure he might have recused himself, but none of our business. Okay, there's one more hand raised. Ronald McNeil would like to speak.
Hi, yes, you can hear me?
Yes, name and address, please.
Ronald McNeil of 103 Wingershik Road. I'm a direct abutter. I was just commenting on in regards to the fill. The original height, they were told to bring the building down, then they were gonna add fill. Now, they've already been moving sand on that property like 3 weeks ago. I don't know if that's been unpermitted or what. But in regards to that, I think They really just want to, they want to reach an elevation to, this is my guess, is to gain access to the view of Farm Creek in the, I guess that would be almost south. So I think height is very important because on their architectural sign that they put out front, which has now been removed, they were advertising unparalleled views. So I think that fill and that height is still going to come from somewhere. And again, I think it's a direct conflict of interest and checks and balances to have the Conservation Committee chair and the head architect be the same person. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So again, there's no height issue before us. So we'll move on to anyone that wants to speak in opposition to the appeal. I believe Mark Bobrowski was the first. Mark, yes.
Thank you,
Name
Mr.
and
Chairman.
Address as well. didn't
Can you
give
hear
it-
me?
Yep, name and address, please. We can.
Mark Bobrowski, I'm counsel for the applicant. My office is in Damon Mill in Concord, Massachusetts.
Thank
The
you.
address, the street
Thank
address?
you. I'm joined tonight by Ryan McShera, who is the architect in chief here, and David Calkins, who is also involved with the applicant. I'm going to turn it over, with your permission, to Ryan momentarily to explain the conversations he's had with your building commissioner and his architectural decision-making. But I just want to point out before he does that, that this is a project which meets all dimensional requirements now that the ramp has been moved out of the yard with the zoning ordinance. And those are set forth on one of the sheets in the plan set that you have, right down the line from area, frontage, all the way to the height of the building. So the only thing before you tonight is the issue of whether the ramp has been corrected. The size of the building overall is not on the plate. The structural design issues associated with later construction of the ramp is not on the plate, and an Airbnb is not on the plate. Those are not issues before you properly. With that, I would ask your indulgence, and if Mr. McShera has his hand up, he can enlighten you more.
Okay, I don't, there. What's his name? Ryan?
Ryan, right.
Okay,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan McShera, Red Barn Architecture, number 8 Martin Street in Essex. So we have had a couple of meetings with the building department since the last time this project was presented to the board. We discussed the fill. The fill will be built in accordance with all Conservation Commission previous approvals. So I think we can put that one to bed. There's no process of bringing in extra fill. There's no attempt to change the building height by bringing in fill. As this board understands, the height of the building is established by the grade around the existing building, measured to a point of the flat roof or the highest peak of a sloped roof that we're dealing with here. So the height should be compliant, and we're not bringing in any fill to change the height or do anything like that. And the ramp, yes, as originally proposed, the ramp was shown in the setback. We have since removed it from the setback and have come up with a design that, while not maybe not the best as far as most useful, but it certainly is compliant with codes and able to be bringing cars from the grade up to the height of the slab of the garage and then back down. We're dealing with coastal dune situations, so we need the raised slab in the garage. So we need a ramp to get up to it. So the ramp serves that purpose, and it is designed out of the setback. And one more item on the structural design, we have had conversations with the building commissioner about how to best handle that. We are waiting for all the permits to clear and be ready for us to construct. The next step will be to bring down the house and then get in and do geotechnical explorations. With the geotechnical explorations in hand, we will then finalize the structural elements. And we agreed upon that with the building department to treat that as a deferred submittal, as is allowed in the building code. So as soon as those geotechnical explorations are complete, we will finalize all the structural designs, submit those to the building department for final review and approval before moving forward with structural building of the building or the ramp. Be happy to answer any of the questions that the board might have.
thank you. Anything, anyone? Okay. David Calkins, is he with your group also? David?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, members of the board. My name's David Calkins, 175 Woodlawn Circle, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Back Channel Consulting, speaking on behalf of 125 Winger Chic LLC, the applicant for the building permit. I just wanted to real quickly clear up a couple of misconceptions. The revised plans that were submitted to the appellant as well as to the city, they do have dimensions and there are structural elements to the vehicle ramp. So those have been provided to everyone. Also, you know, as well as we do, new construction now in the coastal dune does require being built up on stilts. So these are going to be challenges that people are going to be facing anytime they try to build a house down on Coffin's Beach at this point. And then lastly, just a point of clarification, if we're going to get down to brass tacks on the appeal, there's really nowhere that it brings up the fill. The fill was brought in at a later date and time. We have resolved that issue, but just as a point of clarity, it's not referenced in the appeal. It's only the fact that the vehicular ramp was in the setback, which we also have clarified. So lastly, I would just like to make sure, or I guess remind everyone, this project carries approvals from 2017 and extensions, and we're just hoping to continue to work towards satisfying those and getting this project underway. So we've tried to address the concerns of the appeal and continue along this process. And as Ryan with Red Barn alluded to, we can't tear down the house until we have a building permit, at which point then we can move into the structural piece. So it has to be done in sort of stages, and we're trying to do that diligently and respectfully.
Thank you. Attorney Hanley, you have the opportunity for rebuttal.
You hear me now?
Yes.
I just, as a point of correction, I do believe that the matter of fill was raised in the appeal. But with respect to the ramp, the appeal was that the plans that were submitted, to the extent that they showed anything, showed an encroachment, which has been corrected, but that the plans themselves are insufficient to allow the construction. They cannot be approved for the construction of this ramp. And I don't think that there's any dispute on that issue. And I would just respectfully request that whether or not you want to approve the building permit, you just clarify that it does not, that approval does not extend to an approval for the construction of the ramp, which I think everybody agrees requires further plans, further engineering, and further approval by the building department. So I guess I'm kind of at a loss as to why the applicant here is insisting that, or seems to be insisting that the permission to build this ramp be included as part of the building permit that applied for and received. I don't think that there's that and I don't presume to speak for the applicant's consultants, but I don't see any engineering stamps on these drawings, and I know that an engineering stamp is required for an elevated roadway. They're just not there. These plans don't make it. But they're not sufficient to construct this ramp. If the applicant insists that the ramp is part of it, then I believe that my appeal of the building permit should be upheld and the building permit should be denied until such time as the ramp design is sufficient. If the board wants to segregate the ramp construction out and say, okay, issue a building permit for the building without the ramp, and come back when you've got the ramp design to the point that the building department can examine it and confirm compliance with the applicable code, which is not the building code, it is, then you know, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think in the discussions with the building inspector over this previous hearing, I think he's pretty much, obviously the appeal was that it was in the setbacks. That's been corrected. But I know he was pretty clear about that he wasn't issuing permission to build this ramp until he was satisfied with the structural drawings that would be submitted after the testing. So Catherine, if you want to take a stab at how we're going to hit this.
Yeah, sure. On the petition of Susan and Frank Kinsey, appealing building permit 20-475 issued for 501 Winker Street. I would move approval of the appeal insofar as it relates to this elevated ramp going to the driveway. I would, the rest of the building permit stands, but not as it relates to this ramp until such plans are, until plans are submitted to the building inspector's satisfaction.
Okay, motion made,
I can second that.
made and seconded. Discussion by the board. I would say I agree. I think the upholding the appeal of the permit as it relates to the ramp should serve the purpose. We really have nothing to oppose the main structure since none of it is before us as far as setbacks or height or anything. So I'd agree with that approach.
Yeah, I understand the neighborhood's objection to the structure, but if it's all meets zoning setbacks and complies, there's nothing that this board can do about it, so.
Right. Okay. We have a motion and second to uphold the appeal as it only relates to the ramp to the garage. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, in favor.
Mr. Gelati,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes,
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes,
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. Attorney Hanley, you've heard our decision. In the interest of your client, I will offer you the opportunity to create a draft of how the wording that we would then review and approve or make changes to. That way you'd be ensured of it stating what you want to say with regard to the ramp permit.
Be happy to.
Great. And Greg, we do have a resubmitted drawing that I would ask that you stamp and sign on my behalf
Okay. Yes.
for that. Okay, we'll move on then.
Thank you very much.
Our next application is a continued hearing, the petition of Michael Allen seeking a special permit under 1.9 to alter and expand a non-conforming structure and side yard variance to allow construction of 2 new rear egress decks at 18 Taylor Street. This was continued from a previous hearing and so that the members could go out for additional site visits. So we will continue from there. Was everyone who participated in this last time?
I did.
Anyone absent? Adria, you were not, right?
Sorry, meant to unmute myself. I was here for this one.
You were.
Yep.
Was it James was away? Right, okay, so it'll be the 5 of us. On this is Attorney Favazza representing still, yes?
Wasn't he filling in for somebody on this?
Rob Gullah.
Oh, yeah, Rob.
My apologies.
you got company tonight.
I think we'll be okay. So I'm sorry in advance if you hear weird noises. It's this one, not me. Joel Favazza, Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. Here back on behalf of Mike Allen, owner of 18 through 20 Taylor Street. I want to report to the board that since we last met, I went out onto the site and met with the one neighbor who had raised concerns, Ms. Rigsby. And we've come to, I believe, a tentative agreement. I'm sure she's here tonight and she can confirm that. But basically, we would look to allow the decks to remain as currently configured, subject to 3 conditions. One would be that restriction of use of the deck to egress only, no furniture, no grills. It'd be written into all leases going forward. 2 would be to construct a 3.5-foot wooden barrier with at least 1 layer of exterior acoustic shielding material across the face of the compressors. So basically, if you went out to the site, imagine a little kind of, 3.5-foot fencing that would connect the 2 decks and hide the compressors behind some acoustic shielding. And then the chain link fence that is on site right now will get replaced with a stockade wooden fence at a height of 8 feet that would be solid from ground to peak with the nice side facing out to 3 Taylor, which is Ms. Rigsby's property. The only question I have for this board is an 8-foot fence requires relief. And I'm curious if the fence ties into this, overall rebuild, if we're able to get through on the special permit to alter, expand a non-conforming structure to allow for the deck and 8-foot fence that Ms. Rigsby has requested, or whether I need to come back under a separate application for the 8-foot fence. And I leave it to the board. Obviously, if we can get it wrapped up tonight, that would be easiest for everybody, but I don't want to do anything that is, stretching the permit too far. But with those 3 conditions, it's my understanding that Ms. Rigsby and my client have reached an agreement. And as I said last time, she was the one opponent to this. So hopefully we're in good shape.
I would think that we could include that as a condition without going the variance route. And just remind you that a fence taller than 6 foot does require a little more in the application with regard to engineering. That's all. So that it's structurally sound. Does anybody else think that wouldn't be appropriate?
No, I'm fine with it. And I
I'm on
think
board.
for me,
Go ahead, Michael.
I think for me, I'm just encouraged because my decision was going to be either they were going to reach agreement with the neighbor or I was going to insist that the HVAC units get moved to the driveway. Yep. So
Okay.
I think it's a good solution, but to me, if it wasn't reached, I was not happy with what I was seeing there.
Alrighty, so we had closed the hearing. I'd like to ask the neighbor, though, if she's here. Yes, I see her, Lisa Rigsby. Could we bring her in for discussion?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you just restate your name and address, please?
It's Lisa Rigsby, 3 Taylor Court, Gloucester.
Okay,
So to reiterate Mr. Favaza's statement, yes, I was grateful that he reached out to me and that we have been able to come to some agreement on this situation. And I just want to say that I'm appreciative that you continued this from 2 weeks ago, and especially to Mr. Nyman and Mr. Canavo for raising the concerns. My only concern from here is based on the track record, and I'm speaking of fact, not feelings, of Mr. Allen, what assurances do I have that the conditions are met? Like what would be the milestones and what would be the time frame? And I'm sure that you don't want to be bothered if something happens, or I'm not really sure about what the process would be from here.
if the applicant failed to live up to the agreement, you would not come to us, you would address that with the building department, and their job is to enforce any conditions on any permit.
Well, okay, that's, I guess that's it. It's been an onerous process, starting with the building department, as you recall, through my documentation. So basically what you're saying is that I have to go back to the beginning.
No, now that you have an order of conditions in place from us, the building inspector would have to enforce those. So as, say they all of a sudden put a grill out on the deck, you could call and they would be obligated to make sure that that's taken care of. It's the only remedy we have.
So it's my responsibility to police and make sure that the conditions are met.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no ongoing inspection or anything like that.
Well,
Ms. Rigsby,
sorry, go ahead.
respectfully, it would just be the same for any property owner anywhere. If your neighbor's doing something that's violating your property rights, if you want to get that rectified, you would reach out to the building department or the Board of Health, or, you know, whoever would be the appropriate authority. So I hear, I mean, I listened, you know, from before, and I hear that it has not been a pleasant process for you, but that is the only avenue. We set down conditions. We're not the ones that enforce those conditions. We're the ones that set them down legally. It's the building department, or like I said, conservation, or somebody else, engineering, depending on what the issues would be, to enforce, you know, any conditions that we put on permits.
Thank you. Well, I guess I don't know if Mr. Favazza has anything to say regarding the timeline of this fence, constructing it. And again, I'm making a note about the engineering notation for an 8-foot fence to be secure, that there's something additional required there. You know, ideally, I would like a timeline for the completion of the sound dampening and the fence.
Joe, is there any reason why we can't condition that in our decision?
Not at all. I mean, we can put a compliance date, you know, that this has to, because it is a, you know, sort of an after the fact request, we can say that the condition, I mean, typically when we issue something, they have to file it with the registry and take action.
Sure.
I mean, within a year or whatever, 2 years, but I mean, we could put conditions, and I think they're gonna obviously make the best effort, but yeah, we can put it in the motion, I suppose. I mean, reasonable, what's reasonable, 60 days?
Yeah, I think 60 days is reasonable, because it's going to take them, and Joel, I'll let you speak just one sec. Yep. That there's a certain amount of time that technically they shouldn't do the work, because there's a process, there's the appeal process. I don't think anyone's going to appeal. It's only Ms. Rigsby that was concerned. But we should probably allow that appeal process to travel. So that's a month. And then, but it doesn't seem to me that preparations can't be being made while that appeal timeframe is in process. So
Yep.
There's no reason why you can't be ready to do the fence in 40 days, for instance, you know, or have the material all picked out and ready to go in 45 days, so that compliance within 60 days. So.
Thank you.
Okay. We ready for a motion?
Can we just speak with Joel as to whether that's accomplished, doable?
Thank you. So I have no problem with the restriction as to use being immediate. I have no problem with, you know, a 45-day, 60-day timeline on the acoustic shielding. My only concern is with the fencing. We've begun calling fencing companies, and like all the trades, they're backed up, and you know, we're getting told things like, yeah, we can see you in August, that sort of thing, right? So I would need a longer time, you know, certainly before the frost hits, you know, in 2021, this can get done, you know, this can get done by this fall, but I can't promise that it can get done this summer, because fence companies are already telling us they're booked up. And this isn't a big fence. I know it'll take them half a day, but still, that's the story we're getting right now.
It's true, though. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
we'll put a date.
I think that's I agree with Joel. I have had personal experience with this on my own house and everything is delayed. Building products are delayed. I think that's a really short window, 45 days to 60 days. So I would be okay if it was,
October 1st.
yeah, yes. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Catherine?
All righty, on the petition of Michael Allen seeking a special permit to alter, expand a non-conforming structure in the side yard variance to allow the construction of 2 new rear egress decks at 18 Taylor Street. I would move approval of the special permit. I think he's doing a nice job with what was an otherwise dilapidated structure. He did a nice job. And the side yard variances, I think there is a hardship with having to do the kind of created by the air conditioning units and the need to have 2 separate egresses out of that 2-family. So I would move approval of the special permit and approval of the variances on the condition that there be it written into the leases that there is those 2 side decks are to be used for egress only. There's no furniture to be placed on them and no grills. They're not to be an area to sit outside and socialize. 2, that there be a 3.5-foot shielding with some acoustic sounding in it around those compressors that are between the 2 decks. And 3, that there be an 8-foot stockade fence erected between 18 Taylor Street and Mrs. Rigsby's property. And that all of that work be completed by no later than October 1st, 2021. With those conditions, I would move approval.
I would second that and just qualify the condition as far as the decks go, that the condition for the use of the decks would be immediate. That there's no reason for delay, which Joel already admitted earlier.
Yes.
That they would immediately only be used for egress and they would immediately not have any grills on them and furniture on them and so on.
Yes, I accept that amendment to my motion.
Motion made and
Yep, and I would
seconded.
second.
Roll call.
Yep.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes, I'm in favor of the special permit and in favor of the variance
Mr. Canavo,
with the 3 conditions. Yeah.
In favor.
Echo what Michael Nyman said with conditions and all.
Ms. Schlichty,
In favor of the special permit, in favor of the variances, yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, I'm in favor of all the relief requested, and I just wanted to thank Joel for working with the applicant on this one, because this would have been a tough one.
Mr. Parisi,
I vote yes. You've heard our decision. Greg, if you'd stamp and sign those plans on our behalf, and Attorney Favazza, if we could get a draft, would be appreciated.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our new hearings of the night. Now, this was advertised with an appeal of the building inspector. But Adria, you're going to recuse, although that may not be the issue.
Okay.
Apparently, that may have been resolved, but let me read it and then we'll go from there.
Perfect.
So, Petitioner Richard S. Hersey seeking appeal of the decision of the building inspector for the determination of inspector's interpretation of property as corner lot with frontage on 2 streets and variances for front yard and rear yard setbacks to allow construction of a new 2-family dwelling at 652 Essex Avenue. I believe it's Mr. Gardner's representing.
Oh, there I am.
There he is.
It's Carl Gardner, I believe.
Yeah, I found him again.
You need to unmute yourself, sir. Not, Mr. Gagne, I'll ask to unmute. You need to unmute. There you go.
How about that?
Yep. Name and address for the record, please.
Carl Gardner, 9 Woods Lane in Ipswich, Massachusetts. I'm the applicant in this matter of 652 Essex Avenue. I'm under a contract to purchase this lot from Richard Hersey, the owner. And what's transpired recently as yesterday, which I believe the board has a copy of Mr. Sanborn's email to Mr. Brown, who's counsel for Mr. Hersey. He's revisited this issue of access and frontage issue on the right side of 652 Essex Avenue, and he's determined that in fact there is no access or frontage on that side of the lot, so therefore that this would be a side yard, and in effect it makes the application moot, and therefore I would request that the board vote to allow me to withdraw the application without prejudice, please.
You're talking about withdrawing the entire application?
Yes. This determination by Mr. Sanborn, which he provided via an email in writing to both Mr. Brown, Mr. Cefalo, I believe yourself, Joe, and Allison, has effectively made this application moot and unnecessary.
So you don't need your variances that you were requesting?
No, it was a 2-tiered application where I was appealing.
Because of the side yard. Okay.
Yep.
So you wish to withdraw without prejudice?
Yes, sir.
We'll entertain a motion for that regard.
You're muted, Catherine.
It was a good speech, though.
On the petition of Richard Hershey for 652 Essex Avenue, I move that the applicant be allowed to withdraw without prejudice.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote to accept the withdrawal.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes.
Mr. Gelati,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
On the next advertised hearing, I've been informed that the 68 High Popples Road needed to be re-advertised and has been moved to the May 27th meeting. There was another appeal in there, I believe, that needed to be advertised differently. So we will be passing over that one. I apologize if anyone's in the audience for that. It's going to move to May 27th. I think people were notified. So our next hearing is the petition of Roger Mercady seeking a special permit under 1.9, a special permit for building height to allow the demolition of a detached structure and replace with new structure, garage and office above at 10 Waterside Lane. You'll need to unmute. And
Hello, can you hear me?
yes,
Yes, my name is Roger McCaldy. I'm the owner of 10 Waterside Lane. I live here with my wife Joanne and our 2 young kids, ages 9 and 12. I am seeking a special permit to expand my existing non-conforming accessory building. We've been living here for about 2 years, and we've realized that our property has 3 shortcomings. The first is which is storage. Our accessory building doesn't provide access for our yard equipment or have sufficient room for our sporting goods equipment. And because of this, unfortunately, we've been the victim of 2 instances of theft over the last 2 years. We've had some yard equipment taken and then also some building supplies removed from the property. So we're in need of storage. Our second need is for secure parking. This is going to sound like we're in a high theft zone, but this winter, my wife's car was broken into in our parking lot or driveway at 3 a.m. I think it was in January. So unfortunately, we're feeling kind of vulnerable down at the end of Waterside Lane. So we're looking for a way to secure our belongings and our cars. Our third need is for office space. My wife currently conducts a home business, and her home business is conducted right here in our living room, in our kitchen island, which works out great, except for when my son is playing floor hockey or whatever else, you know? So our proposed plan is to eliminate these three shortcomings that we have. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to use the existing structure as much as we can, use the existing foundation and footings, but expand over to the north where there's an existing deck. We'd like to expand over that. And then we'd also like to expand 4 feet to the west. That would give us enough adequate room to park our 2 vehicles and our sporting goods and yard equipment. We would also like to add a second floor, which would be for our home office, as well as, you know, for a gym. Everyone feels like working out. The proposed plan, I've drawn it, or we had my architect draw on a flat roof, because I want to minimize the effect to the neighborhood. And in doing so, this would allow us to have 2 floors of usable space with a net gain of only 6 to 7 feet of height. So it's my opinion that the proposed plan does not negatively impact the neighborhood, as it would not obstruct views, add to traffic flow, or require any additional utilities. It is also my opinion that the proposed building would add to the beauty of Waterside Lane and give our home a lot more connectivity, because currently our house, if you guys came down, has these wide cedar planks, kind of a modern look. And the accessory building is, you know, just gray shingles. And often we have people over and they look at the accessory building and say, oh, whose house is, or what is that? Does that belong to you? So if they looked similar, I think it would be better or more appealing. I would also like to add that I have considered other locations to build on this lot, but because of this intermittent stream that we have, it really kind of shoehorns us into this one little area. I have had some neighbors that have shown some objections to what I want to do, and they've made some recommendations as to other building locations. But unfortunately, those locations would further violate the current zoning ordinances. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant at this point? I just had a couple quick ones, and maybe my packet, there is no floor plan that shows, you talk about a bathroom.
Yeah.
Those are areas of great concern to this board.
Yep.
With accessory dwellings. One, that this is never going to be livable. We would only allow probably a half bath, but that's not indicated. We're going to need to have that to permit a plan to show what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if we stamp this one, you aren't doing a bathroom because there's not one on the plan.
Right. Yeah. The half bath was a second thought, and I originally didn't plan on putting one in, and then it was recommended that I at least try for it. I don't know if it's really feasible, but I did think to get you another floor plan yesterday, but realized it was too late within the window, so I didn't supply one, but I could certainly furnish one.
Yeah, we'll need that. Okay.
And it would only be a half bath. We're not looking to inhabit this space. It would just be.
Yeah, that's all we would allow anyway.
Yep.
So we may be able to get it, you could submit a drawing that would get stamped. Okay, we'll take some public testimony. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Please raise your hand to be recognized. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone in opposition to the application that wants to speak? You raise your hand on your tablet or your computer, or if you're on a phone, you dial *9. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the plan? The only thing we did receive correspondence that was later, it was in the packet. It was a neighbor who, like he had mentioned, was suggesting maybe a different spot. but I thought she was going to be on to speak, and I do not see them.
Joe, I think the letter said they weren't gonna do the Zoom because they don't have the capabilities, and she wanted the letter that or the email read into the record. But it's kind of like a letter to the applicant. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I get, yeah, they did. I mean, I don't have a problem putting it into the record. They ask if you consider building over your 2-car garage where you park your cars now. Seems that would be a great solution. You're going to tear the building down anyway, and it's on a very fragile ecosystem on Freshwater Cove. We've lived next door for 32 years. We have seen the area around the existing building, even into the building, flood several times to a depth of 2 or 3 feet. With everyone talking about the inevitable sea rise, which I won't read in. Even though I noticed from the ZBA does not specify that you want to build out 4 feet. But again, that was in the plans. It sits close to an intermittent stream. So the question with regard to this, you'll have to go to conservation. You haven't been to Conservation Commission, correct?
Yeah, that was my first stop, was to
You
talk
did?
to Adrian. Yep. Yeah, I have to file an NOI. No, I've got to file an NOI. But I kind of anticipated some an issue with my abutters. So I figured I would try to get zoning approved first and then do the NOI. I'm in no rush with
Yeah, I
construction,
think
labor
you're gonna
costs.
have more trouble with them.
Yeah, no, I'm fully aware of that. Yeah.
Okay, so we've done that. I'll close the public hearing. Discussion by the board?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So are we gonna have to continue this until we get the revised plans? 'Cause we can't really approve it tonight, right?
Yeah, we really need, because the document, this plan is part of the decision, we do need, and I mean, we could approve it what's here, but it will have no ability to put in the half bath. I'm not even sure how you plumb it or where it goes from there, but.
I don't,
We could
maybe I
move
just-
ahead as is, or if you want to make sure that that gets included, we'd have to continue and you get us a new floor plan showing that.
Yeah, I think we can continue without the half bath. I think it's not likely that I would ever get to that anyways, just because to get to my septic system is a mile away and it's in the floodplain, so I don't think that it's gonna happen anyway.
Okay, so we'll continue as the plan submitted with the big room up top. And so with that, any other questions, or do we want to have a motion?
That was my only question. I'm all set.
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. On the petition of Roger McCarty, seeking a special permit for building height to allow demolition of a detached structure in place of a new structure, garage, and office above at 10 Waterside Lane. I move approval of the special permit.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, I would vote in favor of the special permit.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes, I know these are expanding the building a little bit, but I don't think it's substantially more detrimental than the existing building. And I think that including office space above it, I think is reasonable too. So I'm moving, I think it meets the standard for a special permit. I'd move approval.
Mr. Nyman,
yeah, and I think it makes it easier even without the half bath there. So I would say yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. You've heard our decisions favorable. We will create a decision for you and get that to you as soon as we possibly can. I will write it for the record, and Greg, if you would stamp those plans as submitted and sign them on my behalf.
Yes.
Okay, our next application is
Thank
a
you.
petition. I'm sorry.
I just said thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good luck.
Thanks.
Petition of Taplet, Francis Brooks, and John Colley seeking a variance for front yard and side yard setback to allow demolition of existing rear wing and garage to be replaced with new addition, entry, stair, and new rear wing with garage, mudroom, family room, bedroom, bath, and new porch at 16 River Road. And I believe they're represented by Attorney Robert Stewart.
Good evening. My name is Steve Milkey. I'm the architects for the owners, John Taplet and Francis Brooks Taplet. Is it
Is
okay?
Robert Stewart not attending?
He is attending. I think they're.
He's the authorized applicant.
That's right.
He needs to come on.
Okay.
Yeah, Robert Stewart.
I don't see him.
I know that he's with the Taplets for the Zoom meeting.
Okay, I see John Taplet. Let's bring him in. There he is.
You got on mute, Mr. Stewart.
There you go.
Okay, well, I want to introduce our architect, and he's.
We need, you guys are too far apart. We can hardly hear you. You got to get closer to the mic.
Okay, I'm a very soft-spoken person, as some of you probably don't know. So the petition is for a very small adjustment to one little piece of the side of one side of this this particular house, and we have an architect, Mr. Milkey, and we'd like him to explain, if you would, what it is we do. I believe you have all received architectural drawings and a lot of material, which I trust you've looked at ahead of time. So if I could introduce you to the architecture and let him explain any of the things that you may have questions about.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just a brief description of the project. We have a non-conforming lot with a non-conforming structure that creates very difficult constraints to work within. Our proposal is to maintain the existing Garrison Colonial, and we're requesting a special permit to alter and expand the non-conforming structure. And we're seeking relief from the front yard and side yard setback. The plan is to basically reconfigure or rebuild the side entry that will decrease the nonconformity on the north lot line. And the proposal includes a porch fronting on River Road. And the idea is that the current house really sort of turns its back on the road. It's kind of an oddball in this community and in the Annisquam context. And like its adjacent neighbors and many other houses in the neighborhood, we'd like to add a front porch to sort of create a more symbiotic relationship with the neighborhood and create a nice environment to sit out and take advantage of the water views. The rear portion of the house is technically an addition, but essentially it's an expansion of the existing house. We're increasing, moving it maybe 4 feet closer to Arlington Street, well within that setback. And essentially it's a 2.5-story addition and with the new porch. And I'd like to know if you have any questions or concerns that are not clear in the plans, or if you have any other comments you'd like to discuss.
Okay, any questions at this point from the board members?
Yeah. Yeah. So why do you need why do you need a variance on the left side?
I think it's it's the right.
Right, you're,
Oh, it is the right. No,
Yeah,
but you're still
It's the
just
left side,
continuing a
but it's wrong.
nonconformity, aren't you?
That's right.
Because you're removing the blue bump out. So he's only extending that nonconformity, so that's.
So I
It's
think you
probably-
only need a front. I think you only need a front yard variance. I don't think you need a right or a left.
Okay.
Right, I agree.
I was gonna say the same thing, yeah. Yeah,
Because on the right side, you're 15 feet, and even that little sort of extension as you make your way toward the backyard is still it's much further away than that 15 feet. So I think that would all fall under the special permit, except for the front porches.
Well, my only question is, reading the ad, it's only asking about the variances. Wouldn't this be an alternate 1.9 to alter and expand also? It doesn't appear that's in the write-up.
We did check off that box on the application, that was part of the request on a special permit to alter and expand.
yeah, it's a little grayed out on the application, I guess you're right.
I'm just looking at the
It's red on the,
render.
yeah.
The application I got doesn't have the special permit checked off at all. It only has the variances.
Don't you see it as a little, isn't it grayed out on yours?
No, it's grayed out for the variances for front yard and side yard, but there's no grayed out at all on special permits.
Right. And clearly, it would require a special permit to alter and expand. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's
No, of
definitely
course
an
it does,
increase in
yes.
nonconformity because of the front yard variance requirement.
Well, I think
Plus,
that to have any possibility of someone challenging it later, I guess I would add the special permit. And that would be something I think would be helpful, so that we wouldn't someday have to come down in front of the board again, just because we only got a variance.
Yeah, well, I think you need a special permit. So I think the question for us, Bob, is do we need to continue the hearing because it's not advertised? Or is everybody good that because the variances carry more weight than the special permit, are we okay just adding that? I think that's what we're asking. Maybe that's not.
Well, I think you can. I think vice versa would be a little bit tough, but if a special permit, it really meets that one quite easily. And I think many times we've changed the when I was on the board, we changed those things and notified the petitioner that gee whiz, we think you should also have a special permit, and we will, I guess, ask the application to be modified in that simple way. I think it was vice versa. I think we would probably have to come back again.
Well, I think part of it's going to depend on public testimony, because I know we have received some opposition. So you don't want any other ground for appeal. I would think you'd want to advertise it properly.
It's listed. Oh, it is listed. It's listed as a special permit, a maximum building height of 30, 26, 29.1. So it is, I guess, in the order.
Not in the advertisement.
It may not be in the advertisement.
Or the application.
Well, the advertisement is what matters, though. That's what all the neighbors are reading.
Right, but isn't the project sufficiently described? I mean, if people know what's happening on the.
I don't have a problem, Catherine. I mean, for me, I think like Joe said, let's hear the public testimony. I'm more concerned about the applicants, but I would agree that it's pretty well described what's going on and stuff like that. But and clearly the threshold is a lot lower for the special permit than it is for variances. So
Right, but if there's, we'll see, if there's substantial objection, then they're obviously going to be making an appeal easier if we didn't advertise it properly. So I'm willing to go to public testimony and let's see where we play out. Maybe I'm misinformed, but I did get some calls.
You have two letters in front of you in support of that, two of the neighbors.
Yep.
You have that, I believe, in your file.
We do have that, yes. Okay, so we'll go to public testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? First, we have Jane Remsen, sorry.
Hi,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, I just want to say that
I
I'm a
need,
neighbor of
I
the,
need you to state your
Oh.
name and address, please.
sorry, Jane Remsen, 23 River Road in Gloucester.
Thank you.
And I'd like to state that I'm a neighbor of the Taplets, and I think I've also rented their house for a few months. And I'm laughing at Franny and she's laughing over there. And the house definitely needs renovation and it needs better flow. And if they're not in out of, if the side yards are good, there's plenty of room in the back or the front yard, which is actually where their driveway is. I think their plan is a great one and I think they should be allowed to proceed.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Jane Deering?
Can you hear me?
Yes, name and address, please, for the record.
This is Jane Deering and I reside at 18 Arlington Street. I'm in a butter and this is a very difficult situation for me because not only am I in a butter, but I'm a friendly neighbor of the young couple. I do have a concern, a definite concern with the addition of a third floor. I've been out of town. I came back last week and I didn't have an opportunity until last week to actually go down to the planning board to look at large scale drawings. The drawings that were sent to me were not decipherable. So I apologize to the board that the letter I submitted, which was lengthy and mentioned my concerns, didn't come under the wire in time. So I do hope that the members of the board will read that.
Because I live in London, so I'm so sorry.
I beg your pardon?
No, you're speaking. Go ahead.
I wasn't in London, but I was taking care of family. We had a death in the family out on the West Coast and I was taking care of my grandsons. I have a couple of concerns that I put in my letter. One is the continuation of relief to setbacks, which continue to chip away at the character of the neighborhood, at the openness, at the sense of light, of air, of space, of privacy. That's one concern, and I've laid that out in the letter at length. And there are very good reasons for having setbacks. My other concern is about the phrase that is now often used about not enlarging the footprint. And as we know, a footprint refers to length and width, but it does not take into consideration height. And it's length and width and height that gives us volume and mass. And it's mass that I think is the essential element that the zoning board must consider when looking at whether a new structure will make a negative impact or not on a neighborhood, or will set a precedent for more and greater mass. We have already in our neighborhood a structure that was approved by the zoning board a few years ago. And this is a very sensitive subject because the owner of that structure is a member of the planning board. The zoning board determined that that particular structure would not substantially alter the footprint. And indeed, it did not. But it did enclose open space, open porches, and then went up and up. And the mass of it, when it was built, was a shock to the neighborhood, caused a great deal of consternation, and blocked light and view and enjoyment of place, not only to the sides, but further back up the street. The zoning board determined that on the plans that were presented by that owner, that there would be no negative impact on the neighborhood. That
Ma'am,
impact has been
excuse me,
great.
Ms. Deering, we need to keep the discussion about this property.
I
We
understand.
can't
and
go back and revisit something
I
somewhere
do,
else.
yes, you're right about that. And I point it out because we cannot continue to have this happen. I am not speaking in objection to this proposal for 16 River Road because I don't think any of us have enough information. We need to know about the third story and how that may impact the neighborhood. So I certainly would like to have either a visit. I'd like to sit down and look at the large scale plans with the applicant and with the architect. I think it's distressing at this point that architects are not able to, or it's not that they're not able, but do architects give consideration to how to modernize a home, how to bring a home up to speed for the 21st century, to make it more energy efficient, to bring in light, to bring in multitask rooms without always having to make it ever larger, grander, bigger. And I also pointed out in my letter to the board that there is a new publication written by a professor at the University of Virginia. The title of that book is Subtract: The Untapped Science of Less. So I would like to ask the board to not make a decision on this tonight. I don't feel there's enough information. And I am very concerned about the phrase, not enlarging the footprint, but not considering the height, length times width times height. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Thomas Brooks.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to speak in
Name-
favor.
Can you give us your name and address, please, for the record?
Tom Brooks, 14 River Road. And just for the record, I should state that I am the father of Francis Brooks Taplett. We are entirely in favor of this proposal. We think our neighbor Jane Deering, whose attitudes towards,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Two things. One, this is people wishing to speak in opposition. And two, I'm not going to allow you to bring up another person by name and
okay.
besmirch them. So
I thought
You're out
I
of
had
order.
an opportunity to rebut.
you're not the rebuttal. The only person that can rebut is the attorney applicant. So you're all done.
Well, we are saying we support this entirely.
Sir, this is people in objection to the application. So I don't think you want to be in objection to it. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the application? I seeing none, we'll close public testimony and we'll allow rebuttal by Mr. Attorney Stewart.
The first thing I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that the third deck is been, the third floor has been in that building for 60 years. 60 years. So there's nothing going up. The only thing that's being done is a porch, which right now there's big heavy bushes that are actually ugly and out further than the porch would be. And that certainly doesn't affect any of the side setbacks at all. The only matter on the setback is this little tiny, you see on the, if you're looking at this from the bottom of the plan, it's that little tiny pink thing that's going up about a part of the old one's going to be removed and it's going to be replaced by a thing which is actually, I believe, less closer to the online, and it's a little bit longer just to have some kind of have a little additional storage on the side. I think it would be very difficult to conclude that we have heard anybody's view of anything, because the view from Arlington Street, we're talking about, what is it, about 2 feet?
2 feet, yeah.
It's 2 feet further in.
But we're narrowing it, not widening it.
It's actually, we're narrowing it, not widening it. We're making it a little bit longer, but that doesn't affect anybody's view at all. And so I would suggest that this application is quite sound. And I think that I haven't heard anything in opposition that I would think that would give the community any difficulty whatever in looking at this beautiful old house.
Thank you. Discussion by the board. I would start. So with recent decisions in the land court and the Supreme Court, you are allowed to do these side yard pieces because you already have a pre-existing non-conforming setback. So there's no requirement for either side yard setback. The only issue before us would be the front yard setback and a special permit to alter and expand a non-conforming structure. Height is not before us, view is not before us, just for the public's benefit. Any other discussion by the board?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I think the porch will, on the River Road side of the building, I would agree, it'll make it look much more conforming to the houses as you sort of walk up and down that section, even as you go around the corner to Chapin's and Peter's house and, some of that stuff, the front porches. I think my other comment, though, is I think there's, I think I wouldn't go as far as Ms. Deering, that it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, but I think sort of what she's pointing out is fair in that the back portion of the home where the garage is being expanded and so on, it's going from a 1-story to a 2.5. It's going from a 1.5 to a 2.5 story in that area, and the roof is quite a bit higher. So I just think her concerns, though I don't share them, I wouldn't just dismiss them. I think they're reasonable. I think the building is getting larger, not in footprint. It's my turn, ma'am. Sorry. No, it's my turn. So Anyway, those are my thoughts, Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing this similar to Michael. I mean, I do appreciate Ms. Daring's comments on, it's really not always just about the footprint. Density does matter. And, you know, there is going to be an increase in the density, but there's portions of this building that are going up higher and are bumping out the porch. That said, I don't think it's substantially more detrimental than what's currently going on there. Then I
I
don't
would
think
agree.
it's really not in keeping with the neighborhood. So I'm favorably disposed to the applicant's request for relief myself.
Right, and I agree, but I do think that's why the special permit to alter and expand needs to be a part of it, because we do consider the bulk in that scenario, so that has to be part of the application. Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Adrian?
I don't have much, I don't really have anything new to add, but I do agree. I see where Ms. Deering is coming from. It is increasing the mass of the building. But like Michael and Catherine, I don't think that the increase is substantially detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay. Everybody's good. Catherine, I think let's put together a motion that involves the special permit and the variance.
Yeah, and we're just doing a front yard variance for that porch.
Correct.
On the petition of Taplet, Francis Brooks and John Colley seeking variances for front yard setback for the addition of the porch and a special permit to alter and expand a non-conforming structure to allow for the demolition of an existing rear wing and garage to be replaced with a new addition entry stair and a new right wing with garage and other accoutrements at 16 River Road. I would move approval of the special permit. And I do think that the shape of the lot and the current location of the house does present a hardship. So I'd also move approval of the front yard variance.
I would second both the variance and the special permit.
Okay, we have a
As
motion.
it is increasing the nonconformity, but it's not more substantial. It's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Thank you. So we have a motion made and seconded for a special permit to alter and expand and a front yard variance. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, in favor of both.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes, in favor of both. And I think my other comment about the variance in the front of the house, just to reiterate what I said earlier, I think it actually will bring the house in more conformity. So instead of making it look like you feel like you're looking at the back end of the house, I think it'll make it look like you're looking at the front end of the house. So on River Road.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, I vote in favor.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes, on the special permit, yes, on the variance.
Mr. Parisi,
I vote yes on the special permit. It is an increase in nonconformity, but couldn't say that it was substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I agree with the variance. I vote yes on the variance due to the hardships articulated earlier. You've heard our decision. It's favorable. Greg, if you'd stamp and approve and sign those plans on our behalf, we appreciate that. And
yes.
Bob, are you willing to write a draft decision?
We can write a draft.
We can write a decision.
We'd appreciate that.
And
You
I
can
just wanna
send in
say
a
thank
draft to
you.
us. I'm sorry?
I was just gonna say thank you also.
Okay, thank you.
Very welcome. Good luck.
Okay, our last hearing of the night is the petition of Brent Davidson seeking a special permit under 5.3 home occupation to allow existing detached structure to be used as a home occupation at 25 High Street. I believe Robert Guler is here. Yes, bring him in. Bob, there you go, you're unmuted.
Voila. Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, Commissioners and Chairman. I got beat up a little bit tonight, actually. I wasn't even involved in some of these projects, but Rob Gullah, Registered Architect, representing Brent Davidson. I live at 593 Essex Ave, Gloucester. Brent is looking to take an they already permitted years ago to renovate this this existing accessory structure. And they're been using it for an office for their business psychologist, or he is, or a psychologist. They're looking to have a home office there, as they've been utilizing it as such. And then they wanted to add a bathroom and a sink so their clients would not have to go into the house to use the facilities. Pretty straightforward. There'll be no employees. There's plenty of parking. There is an anomaly on the drawings that shows the cars kind of in the roadway, but we use the online map geo system to just give you an idea of the setbacks, but obviously we wouldn't be parking in the street is the point. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I believe you stated you meet all the criteria, square footage wise and all that.
Correct.
Everything's right. Any questions by the board?
No questions. I think that if we move forward, we would just put the same kind of conditions that we always put on those kind of buildings. No kitchens, can't rent it, and whatever else we can think of. But the idea is it's for what you're saying. You know, when I was speaking with a gentleman when I went out there, the issue is not how he's going to use it. The issue would be how somebody might use it in the future. So that's how we want to condition it. That's all.
Understood.
Yep, the home occupancy goes away too. Okay, we'll take some public testimony. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? I see Brent Davidson with his hand up. The owner.
The applicant, yep. The owner, I should say.
Good evening. Just as Mr. Gillis,
Name and address, please.
Brent Davison, 25 High Street in Gloucester.
Thank you.
And I'm a social worker who is practicing and for a number of years now in Gloucester. I'd like to do so at my home residence. And exactly what Mr. Gillis said is what I'd be doing.
Thank you. Nathan Cohen.
Hi there, it's Nathan Cohen, 6 Hickory Street. I'm here with my wife, Eileen Little. And I don't see any issues here at all. We live right around the corner. It just seems like a great plan for them.
Thank you for coming out and support. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, there's no need for rebuttal. We'll move to a motion.
Yes. On the petition, Brent Davidson seeking a special permit under 5.3 home occupation to allow an existing detached structure to be used as a home occupation at 25 High Street. I think that applicants demonstrated that he's met the requirements for home occupation. It's not more than 25% of the floor area. There's not going to be there's not going to be more than one other person outside of the household working there. If you do an exterior sign, it's going to be, you understand it has to be limited to 2 square feet. And you are showing that you're accommodating parking off the street. And I don't think the occupation is going to generate any more traffic than what is normally generated in a residential neighborhood. So for those reasons, I would move approval of the home occupation.
Second.
Did you get the conditions, Mike, that we needed?
Oh, thank you. I would
Yep.
move approval of those. I'll amend mine. Move approval on the condition that there be no kitchen installed and no overnight guests not to be used as the sleeping quarters.
Yeah,
Anything-
no rental, no use as a rental property,
Yeah, no,
rental building.
Not a dwelling unit, not a dwelling unit.
No.
Correct.
Okay, we
Yeah,
have a
so I
motion
second,
made and
yeah, second
seconded,
with those conditions. Yeah.
made and seconded for the special permit for home occupation. Roll call.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Ms. Schlichty,
yes,
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. You've heard our decisions favorable. Greg, if you could stamp those plans and sign them on our behalf, and we will
Yes,
get a written decision out.
I'll write that, Mr. Chairman.
Catherine will write that one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
You're
Chairman.
welcome.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner.
you.
Yep.
Just
Nice
one
to
note,
see
I
you,
know
Rob.
I know my name was brought up in the 105. I'm no longer associated with that whatsoever, so if it comes up in a future, you can, I know my name kept coming up. I'm not involved at all anymore, so.
Oh,
No problem.
I wonder why.
I want to know, I don't know if any of you noticed, is that our Michelle Harrison in the audience there?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
did notice it. I was looking if I could message her, but I don't have that's not my
It is
capability.
there.
If she'd raise her hand, we'd like to say hello.
She's in.
She's
Someone
now,
just
someone-
added
Oh, there she goes.
There she is. She raised her hand.
Michelle, we miss you. Come back.
She must be checking up on us.
You're on mute, Michelle.
Shall we
All
unmute?
right,
There
push
you
the
go.
button. Now I miss you all too. It's nice to watch.
Oh,
Oh,
who
no.
muted her?
Where'd you go?
No, she's gone.
You finally got her
There she
back and boom.
No,
There she
I
is.
should be there again.
Yeah, you're back.
There
Oh,
you go.
good. All good. But if you want some help writing the decision or you want a draft, I'll forward it to you for Brent.
Oh, sure, we'll take it.
All
Take
right.
it off my plate. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. I'll send it to you and.
I
look forward
should
to
have said I
review
was
it.
going to write that decision.
Right. you
Nice
can
to hear
talk
your
direct
voice,
From the
Michelle.
application. It looked familiar.
Good to
Miss
hear,
you all.
Michelle. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It just was tough after after David's death, and then we had the pandemic, and
I
so
know.
I've been kind of, solo here, but it's getting better. We don't even need our masks anymore after
Yeah.
10 days.
Yeah.
Well,
Burn 'em.
we miss your help.
Well, thank you. Call on me anytime.
Careful what you say, Michelle.
Oh. Right. Hey,
Okay.
Allison.
Great.
Before I go, commissioners, I want to give a shout out to Greg. He helps us a lot with these applications, and I know he goes out as an unsung hero for this stuff. So
thanks, man.
really, thank you, Greg, for all that.
And
Yep.
he does a great job for us.
Yes.
Indeed.
All right.
Thank you all. We're going to need a
Aye.
motion to adjourn unless
Thank
anyone has any
you.
other business.
Yeah. I move adjournment.
Second,
Made and second, roll call to adjourn.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, but I have one thing to say after we adjourn. So don't leave.
Mr. Nyman,
yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gelati,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. So we are adjourned. Adria, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I am not, well, I guess I wanted to find out if everyone else on the board is planning to attend the next zoning hearing on the 27th, because I'm going away and I would, of course, I can tune in via Zoom because we can do that from anywhere. I would prefer not to do that on my vacation, but I will. So I just wanted to kind of find out from everyone to see if everyone else is planning to be here. And if so, I'm not going to make it. But if you guys need me, I can certainly attend.
May 27th?
Yeah.
Anyone?
I'm in the same boat.
You're
I'm
away?
here.
Yeah, we're buying a house in Puerto Rico.
What?
Oh.
Jealous. That's a way better excuse.
Everybody's got exciting things going on.
Okay, so
We'll have 4, right?
Yep.
Congratulations.
All right, so when we get closer, we'll check in with everybody to see where we stand. And if for some reason we were desperate.
yeah, if you're
there's no
desperate,
reason.
if you need me, I can tune in.
They have internet. I was in Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago. They do have internet. so.
I do. I don't know if my house will, but.
Maybe at the bar they will, a little
All right,
Wi-Fi.
well, we'll keep in touch. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Have a
Take
safe
care.
flight
Good
tomorrow,
night.
Joe.
Yeah,
Good night.
thank you.